I don't know exactly when I started keeping a second logbook.
The official one goes to my supervisor, but the second one stays at my house.
It's where I process the things I can't put in a professional report. I'm Nathan Pruett, and I've been a backcountry ranger for 14 years. I'm currently assigned to the Bechler district in Yellowstone. It's a remote, beautiful place that never felt threatening to me until July of 2021. I went into the Bechler corridor on July 12th for a 5-day patrol. I'd run that route 60 times before, and my legs knew every turn. The first 2 days were perfectly normal, just hot summer weather in the meadows. On the third day, I was walking toward Colonnade Falls when I noticed the river sounded different. It was quieter than it should have been, like the sound was being dampened. I checked my position, but everything looked exactly as it should. 4 hours later, my own footsteps sounded off too. They were duller, like the ground beneath the trail had changed. I stomped my boot to test it, but the sound was normal again, so I just kept walking. That night, I camped at my usual site in the Bechler meadows. Everything seemed normal until I woke up at 2:43 in the morning. I was wide awake, instantly alert, like something had just called my name. Then I heard them. Footsteps. It was walking on 2 legs, right along the tree line, hugging the edge of the woods, maybe 60 feet from my tent. They were unhurried, the pace of someone who knew exactly where they were going in the middle of the night. I unzipped my tent and looked out, but I didn't see anyone. I felt observed, though. Not by the thing making the noise, but by something else, something that had taken a position to distract me. In the morning, I found elk tracks along the tree line. They were fresh, but they didn't explain why I hadn't seen anything move. The tracks and my experience just didn't fit together, and I couldn't make sense of it. Weeks later, an older ranger named Phil Gaston told me the Bechler corridor feels like it knows you're on it before you arrive. I haven't told him about my patrol, but I think he's right. I just don't know what it wants. I finished my patrol after those 2 days of unease. The 4th and 5th days were completely unremarkable. I hiked out at the Idaho trailhead on schedule, drove back to Mammoth, and filed my official report. That evening, I finally sat down at my desk and opened the second logbook. I didn't write a report for my supervisor this time. I just wrote for 3 hours, trying to get the truth of those nights down on paper. If you're here with me in this, stay with the Phantom Archives. This channel is where the careful accounts live alongside the terrifying ones. Both kinds matter, and the careful ones sometimes matter more. Share this tonight with someone who works alone in remote country. A certain individual disappeared from group. The official record indicates smallpox, but in private, he made a note that the individual was strangled. They'll know exactly what I mean before you even finish the sentence. 2 weeks after I came out of the Bechler, I was talking to an older ranger named Phil Gaston. He's got 31 years in the Yellowstone backcountry. We were just talking about trail maintenance in the thoroughfare, but the conversation drifted. Phil mentioned that the Bechler corridor gave him a feeling no other section of the park gave him. I asked him what he meant. He thought about it for a long moment before answering. He said it was the feeling that the trail knows you're on it before you get there. He just said it and moved on to something else. I wasn't ready to have the conversation that his sentence opened up. I went back into the Bechler last September. I had to because it's my district and my responsibility. I ran the corridor in 3 days, fast and clean, and on the second night, I camped at the same meadow site. Nothing happened that night. The meadow was quiet, and I slept well. But before I fell asleep, I had the sensation again. Just the feeling of the place being aware of me. I think the Bechler knows.
I just don't know yet what it does with what it knows, and I'm not sure I want to find out. Some things in this park exist at the edge of what observation can reach. I've spent 7 months turning that sensation over in my mind. It's a strange thing to carry around. Some parts of the wilderness don't play by the rules. Is it data, or is it just noise? That's the question that keeps me up. Science has its limits when you're standing in a place that's watching you. Maybe the right response isn't to keep observing. Maybe it's just to acknowledge there are edges to this world. There's a point where you have to admit you're out of your depth. Phil Gaston was right. He's seen more of this park than almost anyone. He was talking about the feeling of being recognized by the land itself. I think the Bechler knows. It's not a malicious thing, necessarily. It's a presence that's been here long before we arrived. I just don't know yet what it does with what it knows. That's the part that keeps me up at night. It's like living next to a secret you're not supposed to hear. And I'm not sure I want to find out. Some things are better left as mysteries. I've done my job, and I've kept my second logbook. The Bechler is still there, waiting for the next patrol. It's beautiful. It's remote. It's become a place that I know, and a place that knows me. I'll keep going back, because that's what I do. I'll keep walking the trails and checking the thermal features. I'll always have the second logbook and the memory of that night. And maybe that's enough. Maybe that's all we get in this life. The Bechler is waiting, and I'm ready to go back. I often think about the weight of those 2 books. One is for the park, a record of duty and order. The other is for me, a record of things that don't fit into any official box. My wife knows they exist, but she never asks to see them. She understands that some things need to be processed in the quiet before they can ever be spoken aloud. The handwriting in the second book is different. It's slower, less certain, and it shows the struggle of someone trying to make sense of something that refuses to be settled. I'm telling you this now because it's time. I'm gonna be as plain and honest as I can, even if the things I'm describing don't sound like much on their own. The terror wasn't in a single moment. It was the accumulation of small, quiet things that were each individually explainable, but collectively, they just didn't add up. I've been a ranger for 14 years, and I know this country better than I know my own backyard. But in July of 2021, the Bechler started to feel wrong. It wasn't a threat like a bear or a storm. It was an unlocatable wrongness, like the arithmetic of the place was producing an answer that simply wasn't possible. My body registered it before my mind could even catch up. So something just wasn't right about the place, and I couldn't quite figure out why. I went into the Bechler on July 12th for a standard patrol. I'd walked that route 60 times before, and my legs knew every turn before my eyes even saw them. The first 2 days were perfectly normal. It was hot, the notes were clean, and the trail was in great shape. I had no idea what was waiting for me on the 3rd day. On the 3rd day, I was hiking toward Colonnade Falls. The river was to my left, a sound I knew by heart. But suddenly, the rhythm of the water felt off. I stopped to check my position, confused by the change. I was exactly where I should have been. There was no logical reason for the sound to be muted. I pulled out my logbook and wrote down a note. It was something professional, for something that felt wrong. I closed the book and kept walking. 4 hours later, the wrongness returned. My own footsteps sounded dull,
like the ground had changed. I stomped, but the sound was normal again. That night, I camped at my usual spot in the meadows. It was a familiar sight, and I went through my routine. I crawled into my tent, hoping for a quiet night. I woke up at 2:43 in the morning. I checked my watch, a habit to anchor myself. The meadow was quiet, but then I heard footsteps. Bipedal footsteps moved along the tree line. They were steady, the pace of someone with a destination. I unzipped my tent, my heart pounding. I scanned the tree line, looking for a silhouette. I could hear the footsteps, but I saw nothing. The silence was more unnerving than the sound. Then the sensation hit me. I felt observed. Something else was watching me, using the sound as a distraction. The footsteps stopped, and I waited for 40 minutes. In the morning, I found elk tracks. It was a logical explanation, but it didn't feel right. I finished my patrol, keeping my head down and my notes professional. The final 2 days were unremarkable, a stark contrast to the unease of that night. I hiked out at the Idaho trailhead on schedule, driving back to Mammoth to file my official report. That evening, I sat at my desk and opened the second logbook. I wrote for 3 hours, trying to capture the things that didn't fit into the official record. It was a slow, deliberate process of working through the memory. If you're here with me, if the restraint of this account is reaching you, then you understand why I'm sharing this. This channel is where the careful accounts live alongside the terrifying ones. Both kinds matter, and sometimes the careful ones matter more. Tonight, share this with someone who works alone in remote country. I think something has that stuff. I don't know if it's a person or if it's something else, but there's been something following us. It's watching us. They'll know exactly what I mean. 2 weeks later, I was talking to Phil Gaston, an older ranger with 31 years of experience. We were discussing trail maintenance in the thoroughfare. The conversation drifted the way it always does when two people who spend too much time alone finally sit down together. Phil mentioned that the Bechler corridor gave him a feeling no other section of the park did. I asked him what he meant. He thought for a moment, then said it felt like the trail knew you were on it before you even got there. I didn't tell him about my patrol. I wasn't ready to have that conversation. But I kept thinking about his words, the way he described the Bechler in language that no official logbook would ever contain. I went back into the Bechler last September. I had to. You don't let a place take something from you that you aren't prepared to give. I camped at the same meadow site, lying in my tent and listening to the night. Nothing happened. The meadow was quiet, and I slept well. But just before I fell asleep, I felt it again. It wasn't footsteps, not anything I could measure, just the sensation of the place being aware of me. I think Phil was right. The Bechler knows. I just don't know yet what it does with what it knows, and I'm not sure I want to find out. Some things in this park exist at the edge of what observation can reach. I sit here now, months later, still turning that feeling over in my mind. It's a strange thing to realize that the wilderness you have spent your life protecting might be watching you back. I keep the second logbook on my desk, a constant reminder of the boundary between what I can explain and what I cannot. The Bechler is not just a place on a map to me anymore. It's a living, breathing entity that holds its own secrets. I wonder if every ranger who has walked those trails has felt that same weight of observation. I think about Phil Gaston often. He's seen more of this park than I ever will, and he knows that some things don't belong in a report. He understands the silence that follows a question you aren't ready to answer. Maybe the trail doesn't just know you're there.
Maybe it's testing you, seeing if you're the kind of person who can handle the truth of what's out there, or if you're just another visitor passing through. I've spent 14 years trying to be the objective observer, but the Bechler has a way of stripping that objectivity away. It forces you to confront the fact that you are not the one in control here. I don't know if I'll ever go back to that specific meadow. I don't know if I need to. I've already seen what I needed to see, even if I don't fully understand it yet. The second logbook is full now. 9 volumes of things that don't fit the official record. I wonder what I'll do when I fill the 10th one. Maybe I'll just stop writing. There's a comfort in knowing that some things are beyond our reach. The world is bigger and stranger than we can ever fully comprehend. That's a humbling thought, and maybe that's the point. I'll keep doing my job. I'll keep walking the trails and filing my reports. But I'll always be listening, just a little bit closer, for the things that don't quite add up. Because the Bechler knows. It knows who we are, and it knows why we're there. And maybe, just maybe, it's waiting to see what we'll do next. I'm not sure I want to find out. I keep the second logbook right here on my desk. It's a constant reminder of everything I can't explain. The Bechler isn't just a place on a map to me anymore. It's a living, breathing entity that holds its own secrets. I think about Phil Gaston often. He knows that some things just don't belong in a report. Maybe the trail doesn't just know you're there. Maybe it's testing you to see if you can handle the truth. I've spent 14 years trying to be the objective observer, but the Bechler has a way of stripping that away. I don't know if I'll ever go back to that meadow. I've already seen what I needed to see. The second logbook is full now. 9 volumes of things that don't fit the official record. There's a comfort in knowing that some things are beyond our reach. The world is bigger and stranger than we can ever fully comprehend. I'll keep doing my job, but I'll always be listening, just a little bit closer. 'Cause the Bechler knows. I just don't know yet what it does with what it knows. I stand at the edge of the meadow, looking into the trees. The air is cold and quiet, just like that night. I adjust my pack and prepare to head back in. Stepping into the timber, the light changes instantly. The trees close in, and the forest gets dark. I keep my eyes on the ground, watching for anything. I stop by a tree and just listen. The river should be right there, but it's quiet. The silence feels heavy, like it's waiting for me. I pull out my logbook and open it up. I'm trying to write it down, but the words won't come. The page stays blank, just like my mind. I put the book away and keep moving. I'm not gonna let this get to me. One step at a time, just like always. I reached the meadow where I camped before. I look at the tree line, searching for anything. It looks normal, but it still feels wrong. I set up my tent just like I always do. The sun is going down and the light is fading. I sit in the doorway and watch the meadow. Night is here and I'm lying in my tent. I'm listening to every little sound in the dark. I'm waiting for those footsteps to start again. I'm starting to drift off, but I'm still awake. I feel it again, that feeling of being watched. I wake up suddenly, my heart pounding. I sit up and listen, but there's nothing there. The meadow is quiet, and the trees are still. I guess some things you just have to live with. I sat there in the dark for a long time, just watching the time tick by on my watch, knowing that some things just don't fit in a logbook. Morning finally came, and it felt like a relief.
I packed up my gear, keeping my movement steady. It was time to head back out.
Back at the station, I sat down to write the report.
I kept it clean, just like the service expects. The strange stuff stayed out of the official log. That night, I pulled out the second logbook. This is where the real story went. I wrote for hours, trying to get it all down. A few weeks later, I was talking with Phil Gaston.
He's seen more of this park than anyone I know.
We were just talking, but I could tell he knew.
Phil said the Bechler felt different than anywhere else.
He said the trail knows you're there before you arrive. I didn't say a word, but I knew exactly what he meant. I went back to the Bechler that September. I had to know if I could handle it.
I camped in the same spot, just listening.
Then, just as I was falling asleep, I felt it again. It wasn't a threat, just a feeling of being seen. And then, as my eyes became accustomed to the darkness, I saw it. It was like the meadow itself was watching me.
I finally realized that some things you just can't explain.
My job isn't just to record, it's to acknowledge the mystery.
I let it go and finally got some sleep.
The Bechler knows, and I think that's enough.
I don't know what it does with what it knows, and I'm not sure I ever want to find out.